Support these interviews by donating at themusicbuds.com. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Music Buds podcast. This is episode number 10, and my name is Henry. It is just me this time around, but I am very lucky to be joined by someone very special. Please welcome composer Jukka Rintamäki.
Thank you.
It is so nice to meet you, and it's so kind of you to take the time to be on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And of course, you have been working in music for a long time, but you are very well known in one way for your work on Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, the best-selling video games, which are incredible, truly incredible. I am just very excited to hear about your process with that and with your other work as well. Jukka, you're in Stockholm, as you mentioned before the show. How are things there? How are you doing?
It's okay. Yes, it's like for everybody on the whole planet. It's strange times. And here in Stockholm, it's not been that close like in other places in the world. Like I have friends in other cities. It's very, very solitary for many people. But here it's been quite okay. And I've been working music for a new game. So actually, I've been working on a distance with that game. So the process for me has been quite the same. I've been working with a program called Slack, where you like chat and you share video clips and music clips. So for me, it's been luckily quite the same, but of course it's horrible in many other ways. And it's been very sad here in Sweden. A lot of people have died, and like many other places. So it's strange.
Yeah. Well, I guess just to kick things off, do you want to talk about your beginnings with music and even before you got involved with Battlefield, because you were working a long time before that? How did you get started in music? Was that something you always wanted to do from an early age?
Yes, in a way it was because I grew up with music in a way because my dad is a musician, and although I grew up with my mother, my dad was very influential in inspiring me to become a musician, I guess, from an early age. And I had instruments all around me, and I saw my dad play this singer-songwriter songs, and he was also an actor. So he was a real artist, and I saw many sides of that already as a kid. So I guess I got a lot of things for free in the way that I saw that it was a real work, and I saw how he did his work, and also the fact that I had instruments around me. I think that was the main thing, because I didn't really start off doing music right away as a kid that much. I played the piano, as many did as a kid, but then I started to play football or soccer, played that for a long time. And then when I was a teenager, I really started to feel strongly about music. And I realized I had a piano and started to do music maybe when I was 15. And then I got into bands, and I played in a lot of bands. So I come from sort of indie rock background, I would say, into the music. I studied music a bit also at university. Music science it is in English. I've been doing quite a lot of different music, and I had been doing a lot of different music before I started composing for games.
Yeah.
One of the main thing I was doing at the time when I was contacted to do the music for Battlefield 3, which I did together with Johan Skugge, my colleague, I was doing a lot of music to contemporary dance at that point, and I still do that. The thing was that I really wanted to do music for a long time to movies and film, but the music I did was a bit too strange to be able to be accepted to films, and I tried to contact producers and directors and give my music to them, and it didn't really fit the movie scene. But just a chance, the band I played with, which is called Silver Bullet, it's a Gothenburg indie krautrock band, and we got contacted by a choreographer who wanted our music in a contemporary dance piece at the Copenhagen Opera.
Wow.
And we, of course, didn't take note that we were excited to do it. I was especially excited because I really wanted to compose instrumental music, and I was doing that a lot of that time, but I couldn't get paid for it. And then suddenly I got to work on the opera with our band. We played live there, and I continued to work with the choreographer, and we did a lot of work. And suddenly I had a place where with the strange music I was doing, it had a place. And the choreographer loved that music because in the contemporary dance scene, it's fantastic with music. They have all sorts of music. They don't care about genres or anything. They just take the things that they really find the most interesting. So I found a place there. And through music, I actually got to do the Battlefield 3 music because I met an old friend, Stefan Strandberg, who was at that time working at DICE here in Stockholm. Mm-hmm. And they were looking to do a modern contemporary soundtrack for the new Battlefield 3 game. They had been doing these orchestral versions of the music for Battlefield 2 and other Battlefield versions. Battlefield 3, it was an urban contemporary war game, and they didn't want to use an orchestra for that. They wanted to do electronic, harsh music. And I was telling Stefan when I met him that I'm actually doing quite harsh electronic music, but for contemporary dance. And he said, oh, wow, that's it. So he said, come up to our office and we can listen to it. And then I came up to his office and I played this music, and it was really harsh electronic music. And he was, wow, this is what we've been looking for, because they couldn't find people in the ordinary field of composer that were doing that sort of music, because it was a bit far off, like.
Yeah. And I think, and as you were saying, having listened to this music, I can't imagine anything else in terms of these Battlefield games. The music is so intertwined to that. I don't think a conventional kind of score, quote unquote, would be interesting. I think your scores work so well. As you were saying with your beginnings, you've done so many different kinds of music. Is that something, of course, as you're saying, your father had that mentality, I guess. Do you enjoy having a lot of different projects or a lot of different styles of music going, or is it just kind of natural?
I think I enjoy it very much, having different kind of music projects. I enjoy making quite a lot of music, and I think the most composers that are working as composers and writing music for film or anything else there, where you're asked to do music in a certain time limit, everything, you have to really like to do quite a lot of music, and you have to be quite fast at producing much music, and you have to like train a lot to get to that point where you can actually, and you have to train your like inspiration also, because you can't sit and wait for inspiration. You have to train, you have to constantly be trained, so you have so much to take from that. You have inspiration inside you in different forms, that you have read books and you have seen movies and that you're interested in different kind of music genres. So you have the possibility to imagine how a soundtrack could be or music could be. Mm-hmm. In this way. So yes, I enjoy very much having different projects, and working with contemporary dance and games at the same time is very good, for instance, or anything actually. It's been quite a lot of different stuff that I worked with,
With Battlefield, these games are so massive, both in terms of the world that they create, but also commercially. I mean, it's played by millions of people. They're beloved all across the world. When you got the chance to do that Battlefield 3, was that more daunting, or is it more exciting, or a little bit of both?
I think it was both. I don't remember how daunting it was. I guess it was sometimes when they had like demands for make the main team. I think that was a difficult task, because we were really like, okay, it's a very special team. It has it's very like clear. It's the Battlefield somehow, and it was already, and we had to make a new version of that, and that was a bit daunting. And the music otherwise wasn't that daunting, because we worked with Stefan Strandberg, who was an excellent audio director, a very creative person. He then went on, Stefan, to be a game designer, and he decided, actually, he was one of those who designed Battlefield 1, the World War I game, for instance. But at that time, he was an audio director and he was excellent in that. He had also been a musician. So we worked very closely with Stefan and sat down and talked a lot with him. And it wasn't that daunting doing the in-game music and stuff like this. I think the main team was probably the most daunting. But then we worked quite a long time on it, and then eventually we got to some point where everybody was happy with it.
Yeah.
But I think you can't start to think about how daunting projects are, because they're always relative to what you are doing. It was, for instance, the most scary gig I ever played was in my small hometown in Finland, where there were maybe 150 people in the audience, but it was the first time when you played it at your like club for the kids, like youth club, and I was 17. I was so scared I couldn't play, and I was almost dropping my guitar pick all the time, and I couldn't. After like 20 minutes, I could play, and I always think about that. I was so scared of doing that, and it's always the same. It's just relative to stuff. You can't really go into that too much, because you have to trust that the thing that you really, really enjoy, someone else will also enjoy a lot. Because if you feel really strongly about something, so it has to be some energy or some power in that music. So You can't let those things scare you too much. No. One thing is scary with this that the game developers, they can be very, very scared because so much money on the line.
Right.
They can be really like censoring the composers, like, no, it has to be more commercial and like this. But Stefan was very good there also as an audio designer. He had a big role in saying to the people on the marketing and every aspect of the commercial side that you have to trust in us here at DICE. We're doing something that we really know this is going to be great and it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Because we know this. We have done a lot of games, and
I could see myself just kind of crippling in that, because similar to like a movie or TV show, there are so many moving pieces. And at the end, you're having to serve the story, the central product. But it seems like you found a good balance, because really, if you connect with it and if you're passionate about it, that's going to come through no matter what.
Yeah, it was good as composer at that Battlefield 3 project and at Battlefield 4. We were kind of protected. We had a sort of wall of people between us and the more commercial side. So we were protected in being creative, and that they always stood by us. And even if we heard about some directions that came in, and it was some people maybe at some office in Los Angeles that was saying from electronics arts side that we would really like to see some guitars here in this. Can we have some guitars? Can we have some strings? Can we have some guitars? And DICE were cool in that. And Stefan said, no, we will not have that. We will do this music as we find it the best for this game. And that's cool. It doesn't happen probably that much in that big commercial scene.
Yeah, I would think not. As we were mentioning, these scores, they're so, in the best way, uncooperative and very unpredictable, even within the whole album, but also within the tracks themselves. You never really know what's coming next. They have this feel of, as you were mentioning, they're very dark and urban, like they're kind of crawling along at times. Like it just has this great style to it. I think one thing, especially with tracks like Rough Journey from the Battlefield 4, it has this great synthy, distorted static to it that it feels like it's popping out of my speakers.
Thank you. I think I like that track actually also, and that that Rough Journey track was the working title was Relentless Beat, and it has that relentless that we were listening to a lot of harsh electronic music also as reference and stuff like this, and we really were looking for that. As you said, it's very dark, and we wanted that dark. It's a war game, and it's a horrible scenario. People die, and you have almost claustrophobic feel to it.
Yeah,
we were trying to be true to that electronic style, or at the Battlefield 4 soundtrack was even a bit more. We started to develop that music a bit more, but certainly on Battlefield 3 soundtrack, some of the tracks were also very, very minimalistic. Mm-hmm. There's this track called, for instance, there's this track, The Death of Vladimir, and it's...
I was going to bring that up in a little while, yeah.
Really? Yeah, because that was actually... Me and Johan, we played with mostly analog synthesizers and played a lot of like improvisation that we cut stuff out from. And that track was actually almost 1 hour improvisation. And the last 3 minutes, that's the part that is The Death of Vladimir. So it's the end of a long improvisation when we're kind of not sure if we're going to just quit in the middle of it, but we just played those last 3 minutes with just some 2 synths, and it got so special, that way of creating. So it's some sort of electronic dark jazz, I would say.
Yeah, totally. I was going to bring that track up in a little while. Just on a personal note, I have that track in this playlist that I listen to all the time, and I guess it's a compliment. Whenever I'm brooding, for lack of a better word, or in a bad mood, I can listen to that track, and it kind of focuses my mind a little bit, maybe even contains my stress or anxiety. It's interesting because obviously, as the title suggests, it's dealing with this character dying, which is very sad. It just goes to show you how interpretive music can be, either within the context of the game or out of.
Very true, yeah.
Well, what about the actual process of making the music for the games? One thing I was really curious about, again, with these games being so huge with the amount of resources, the world that's created, did you get to see much of, if any, of the game before or during the process?
was both. I think we got some film clips, but not that much. We got a little bit of different direction for the two games. For Battlefield 3, we saw some clips, not that many. For Battlefield 4, they actually ordered some teams that they wanted. They of course wanted the main team, a new version of the main team, but then they wanted, for instance, a hero team, for which I did this team called Chell, a team for Chell.
I was going to bring that track up as well. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. And that was the team came about in the way that they actually ordered. They wanted a hero team and an epic hero team, and we didn't know for what part they were going to use it. So I just wanted to do some music that has a lot of feeling in it, that has some sort of a melancholic, epic hero feeling. So yes, they ordered. I think they also ordered like a team for the enemy team, and I don't remember which one that was. I think they picked several in the end, but I remember mostly a team for Chell was hero team, sort of.
Yeah. That track again. I was going to bring that up. It is just such an empowering, inspiring, in a way, surrounding song to listen to. It just has this great rhythm and melody to it. It sticks with you. It's a fantastic track, just on a side note.
It's fun to see. You can see it on Spotify. It's very popular still, and that's so fun to see that people listen to that music. It's totally fantastic that. And there's Solomon's theme is a similar theme to me. I think it has also this melancholic, and it's so fantastic because I grew up a lot of music I listened to in the 80s that I really got inspired from was, for instance, the Miami Vice music. What is it called? Jan Hammer, and he had some theme that was called Crockett's Theme. It's a fantastic instrumental, and it's very melancholic, and at the same time, it's a beautiful piece, and it's totally made by synth. Those sounds, a bit of some of the music when we made Battlefield 3, I think Solomon's theme was for me. I really wanted to do a track where you had a sort of a track that you would love to hear as when you're a teenager, that you can play also on a piano.
Right.
And that Solomon's theme, you can actually play it very easily on a piano. You can take out the sort of the harmonics to it, but at the same time do it totally with synths. It's a fantastic thing that we got to do that, because it's more common with synth soundtracks, and it's not that strange. But for doing a war game back when we did Battlefield 3 soundtrack, it was very unusual to do. Almost every war game had either hard rock guitars or then they have an orchestra.
Yeah, that's such a great mentality to have, because it's the same with me. Is if it's something you would love, there's got to be someone else out there in the world that likes it too. There's got to be.
I believe that strongly. I think it's the only thing that you can follow anyway, because if you start following and composing music that other people are already composing, then somebody else is doing it better probably. So you have to follow. I don't really have any choice but to follow your own. I think every person has his or her own harmonic, like people resonate to certain melodies and harmonies.
Yeah.
And if you follow that very closely, you're on the right track all the time, and the music leads you to doing some sort of unique product, even a product. Yeah, you have to follow that sort of.
Yeah. Now, one thing with video games in particular, as opposed to a movie that is just one product and it is the way it is, with video games, they're very much made to configure to the individual player. And each time someone plays through it, it's different somehow, one way or the other. Was the process of creating tracks that had to be malleable, was it freeing in a way, or was it constricting to create something that wasn't totally tied down?
I don't remember so well with back in when we did Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. You mean the interactive music that is in the game, the in-game music?
Right, yeah.
The in-game music back then wasn't that complicated. We did for Battlefield 3. It's very simple. The in-game music in Battlefield 3. It's actually consists of just a few loops always almost. It's not that complicated, the in-game music, and we weren't that involved in the implementation. We just delivered them some stems and they did all the implementation. So we didn't
Gotcha.
sat down. We never sat down with the implementation people and looked at that. And for Battlefield 4, it was a bit more elaborate. So they asked us to do a lot of in-game music, and they gave us very free hands doing the music. They just said it has some stuff it has to have. It has to have divided in stems, maybe so we can have the different stems, and then it has to have 3 intensities. So you have like a low, a medium, a high intensity.
Wow, interesting.
Then they could implement that. But then I worked with some other games after that, and it has become very, very interactive, the music. So I worked a bit with a game called Rage 2 that was developed by Avalanche, and I worked a bit with it just in the beginning of the game, and then they changed the music quite a lot, and I wasn't involved in the last part of that, but that got even more interactive. And the latest game I've been working with is a game called Crossfire X Operation Spectre, and it's a game coming out this autumn.
Oh, cool!
And in this game, it's very, very interactive, and not to get into the specific how it works, but it consists of a lot of loops and stingers and stuff that is constricting in a way, and it's maybe music that will be done by programs in the future, like that you have like some sort of automated stuff that you can feed a program, and then it can do variations of I don't know how, but at the moment it's still that you do a lot of variation for in-game music, and that's not the most fun thing to do. It's fun sometimes, but it's like a big puzzle of loops.
Yeah, man, that's a strange thought, thinking of like just a computer or some device making the music for a game. It just seems so unnatural.
I don't think the programs can do it totally by themselves. They have to have someone that feeds the machine with musical parameters and basic stuff. So, but it's more like a low intensity combat music in a game, and it goes like, and then if you would variate that, would have to record one that goes, and then you would record, and then the program would change all this. But if you would have a program, then you could just say, I want it to sound like this, and now the program can vary that.
Gotcha, yeah.
20 times instead of composer. But maybe can do it better even. I'm not so... I guess people are scared sometimes that programs will take over the composer's work, but I don't really think that. I think it's probably the other way around, that those programs make you like it will become a tool that you can realize, oh, this program can do this, well then I can do this, and then you have a new tool. Like,
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I agree.
It's a totally different discussion, very technical, but
no, it's okay. It's okay. I had read before that you, in terms of when you were starting on the games, you would have games playing but on mute, and you would be configuring music in that way to get ideas.
Yes, we did that. That was a lot of fun. It was me and Johan who did the music. We sat at my place and played different games on the Xbox, and then we muted the sound and we played up music that we have done and tried different scenarios. How does it work? And it was a lot of fun. And we did a lot of research for Battlefield 3. We had a lot of dinners at Stefan Strandberg's place. Me and Johan and Stefan would sit down, eat food and drink a lot of red wine and play games and talk about it. It was really like this bohemian work style in the beginning, because we were also friends since long time back, and we could sit and talk about anything for a long time, and certainly music. And Stefan was very, very enthusiastic, and after a couple of glasses of red wine, he would jump down behind an armchair and pop up with like an imaginary gun, and then if you come up like this, then you would not hear the orchestra, you would just hear all stuff in his apartment run around, and it was so fun.
I really don't know if you could have a better kind of director.
No, he was excellent in that way. He wasn't. He was very enthusiastic and very creative. So it was very inspiring to go to the studio and work when you had someone that gave that energy to the process, and we had a lot of fun. I think there are some nice video clip from like behind the scenes that we were shooting already then when we were doing the music, because we understood it will be a big game and we will do some video material. And you can see in the games that it's a lot of laughing and fooling around with stuff. And it's a cliche saying that you have to have fun to maybe do good stuff sometimes, but it really worked well that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Had you before or perhaps even after, were there any video game scores, not necessarily that you were inspired by, that you have heard and liked? Or did you really just draw from the world of music in general?
We did draw from the world of music in general, I would say. We didn't find games that we had one game that we liked a lot, but it was for many reasons. It was a game called Limbo.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like a small indie game, and it's not directly music, it's more like sound design, and it's
Hmm.
fantastic. Looks very good, it's a good game, and the sounds are very nice. And that was like a reference that we had, but we didn't make music like that, and the game doesn't look like that, but it was a reference. Then we of course liked some games a lot. I really liked Alan Wake, and I liked the music also, but again, it was another game, and we looked at a lot of games and played them. But as for score reference, we thought we looked in other worlds. We had there's a band called Pansonic. That was a big reference, and it's really, really harsh, almost architectural electronic music and stuff like this. And
Another track specifically that I wanted to touch on, and it kind of sums up a lot of what we've been talking about earlier, is Thunder Run, uh,
mm-hmm.
which is from Battlefield 3. And it's this tank mission where they're rolling across this desert. As you've been mentioning, it has that great pulse, and it's just kind of like boom, 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 boom. But it keeps pace so well, and it helps you just immerse in that world.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that track was made from Roland 606 drum machine. That's somebody has like trimmed and tweaked it, so it has this special way of distorting it. And Johan had just got it, again, Thunder Run is from a long improvisation of just playing around with that 606, and the beat that it builds on is just the 606. Does sort of a bass line and drum at the same time, so it sounds
Wow.
combination like an evil rhythm box with a bass. That's the sound actually. So you have this. Then there's other sounds that make the track big, I guess. But and it's about tanks. There are these huge, heavy vehicles. But in fact, it's this little box, this silvery 606 Roland box that is making this fantastic true distortion, and of course some processing afterwards. But it was a fantastic machine, and
Yeah.
we used a lot on that game.
Yeah.
It could sound really evil.
Yeah. In Battlefield 4, there's the track Duns Down, Dun spelled Dunn for the character. And the beginning of that track is so ominous. I almost felt like it almost sounded like a horn drawn out.
Yeah, it is. It's actually.
Well, there you go.
So Duns Down is actually tuba, and we played.
Gotcha.
Of the process of Battlefield 4, we were three composers. It ended up just being me and Johan, and we continued almost the stuff we were doing from Battlefield 3. It worked better, they thought, at the game developers side, that we were just two. It was difficult to be three, but we started playing with another composer, and he played the tuba in the beginning. So we had recorded a lot of tuba, and on this track it's tuba and cello. And it's lap steel, so it's this strange mixture of instruments. So we have these acoustic instruments that are processed. So it's I guess in the soundtrack as a whole, you can maybe think that they're somewhat electronic instrument, but they're actually real like acoustic instrument, you would say.
Right.
So it's tuba and cello, and I played the cello myself. And it's also from improvising with synths, cello, and tuba.
Yeah. Is there anything else about the process that I haven't touched on that maybe struck you about doing that, or maybe even anything else about your work in music in general? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
I really like both the soundtracks for Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, because I think we were so allowed to kind of experimental music, and it was the first time we did music for games, me and you, and that we got allowed to do that and experiment and do this music that is still today people like a lot, and it worked well in the game probably, and people were satisfied in an artistic sense and also in a commercial sense. This should always be some sort of process that it's always like this. For instance, you had now the soundtrack for Chernobyl, the TV series, where fantastic, and it's
incredible.
It's incredible, and finally you can hear a soundtrack. There's somebody's doing fantastic music, and something you don't hear all the time. So I think it would be more fun for composers and for the audience and everybody involved in the process if it would be a bit more, people would allow composers to do a bit more of that, because it takes such a long time for that music that was in Chernobyl. That kind of music have existed a long time in the underground world, and of course, but it takes such a long time always to come to the and it's strange. Like,
yeah, that composer is incredible because she went on to get the Oscar for Joker.
Yes,
which congratulations about that to her. I had seen Chernobyl before that, and even from that first time I heard that music, I was like, this is so unlike anything I've ever heard. It was amazing.
Great, it's so great. For me as a composer personally, I'm very happy to work contemporary dance field, because that's a field where as a composer you can really develop and experiment with a lot of music that is impossible to do in other genres. But film and games and would look more at the experimental music scene and stuff like this. It would be good in every sense. I think also actually commercially. So
yeah, I agree. I love talking to you. These scores from the moment I heard them, they really connected with me. I still listen to them all the time. They're just very, very special.
Thank you so much. It was very fun to talk with you. I'm happy to hear, and it's so fun so that you call from the other side of the world. And,
yeah.
It's a lot of fun actually. So
good.
I'm looking forward to listen to some of your other interviews, because I looked into it now that you interviewed some very interesting composers. So
thank you. Yeah,
I'm honored that you picked me also to be on this. So.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure. Composers have affected and connected with me throughout my whole life, and so I have the utmost respect and appreciation for them. As I've said before, thank you so much for taking the time. I really hope people enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening, and please subscribe and rate and do all that stuff. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.